I've always remembered the comment on somebody's evaluation at the end of one year where they said, reading together gets us through Michigan winters, you know? And I just think there has always been a very loyal following.
With you two, and what an honor it is to be sort of, I feel like, wow, we're the three, right, that have shepherded this thing for 20 years. And so I just want to say thank you to both of you, because I feel like it's just so cool to be together and to realize what we have built and how we've each brought like strengths and joys and passions to it that just thank you.
Yeah.
Thing that seemed really clear that was going to make ours distinctive was the idea of choosing a book that would bring people together across boundaries, right? So choosing a book that had a meaty enough topic that we could bring together people whose paths wouldn't otherwise cross,
Yeah.
with the common language of a book. And so I think everything flowed from that, right? So even like the composition of the steering committee every year changed based on the book so that we could bring people who had relevant expertise or who had significant connections or who had lived experience that was connected to the topic at hand. So I think it was that, to me, that the structure came from that vision that we were going to make the community stronger by building relationships where there weren't necessarily relationships before.
One of the enduring examples of that has been with a little bit of a gap, the intergenerational conversation between Friendship Village residents and students from Loy Norix and Kalamazoo Central. And I think especially this year, that'll be an interesting, probably pretty rich conversation, being that the book this year is a graphic novel and is likely perhaps to be more appealing to the younger reader than to the older reader who might not have much experience with that. So I look forward to that.
Right. Yeah, I do. I remember the year that we did Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried,
Yes.
and the Kalamazoo Central students went to the Friendship Village Kiva and sat with folks who had real lived experience, not necessarily with the Vietnam War, but with
Yes.
World War II, and how incredibly powerful it was for those students to understand history like first person from being
Yes.
with those residents.
Yeah. There was another time when we joined, there were two book clubs that, they weren't associated with KPL, but wanted to get together. And maybe they do this once a year anyway, but the Brown Sugars, which is African-American women, and a book group that's primarily white women, and they wanted to discuss the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar book. That's the one that I remember in particular, and so that did present an opportunity to hear different people's opinions and to maybe step in somebody else's shoes while you're talking about that common experience, that's sort of the springboard for the conversation.
Another year where that happened was The Color of Water, James McBride, right? And we thought he'd be excited to come and talk about his book, but he was excited to come and play jazz with his jazz quartet. And so it was a time when First Baptist Church and Fresh Fire AME Church were kind of living next to each other in downtown on Bronson Park. And so we had a jazz concert with Pastor Bobette Hampton, and it was just really fun to see congregations, right? White and Black congregations coming together to enjoy music, which was a totally unintended outcome of reading a book together, but was a cool opportunity.
That's what's so wonderful about the books is the opportunity to pull in all these different threads that you didn't necessarily expect, such as a jazz concert or potluck or some other event like that. To this day, if I'm reading a book or I come across a book, sometimes I think, oh, this would be so good for reading together. It's just that natural reflex you have, I think.
And I love that people have said, I wouldn't have picked up this book otherwise. If it hadn't been chosen for reading together, I would never have read it. And I'm so glad I did.
Like, not only do I look at books and think, wow, these would be great for reading together, but I think about that reading together model and think, oh, we could apply that, bringing people together around a common topic, to other things we do. And we could use this idea of having a common language,
Yes.
even without a book sometimes. And so I feel like reading together has really influenced me as a person and a leader, in the sense that always I'm thinking about that foundation of what happens, what can change if people come together around a common experience or common book.
Yeah.
Right. And now I'm thinking of the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime, right? Where most people had never really thought about the autism spectrum, right? Most people who aren't directly touched by it hadn't needed to try to understand what life is like in that set of shoes. And I feel like that opportunity to learn from advocates for people with autism, who taught me to say people with autism and not autistic people, to put the people first, right? That's another time where the conversation around the edges of the book like changed the way I saw the world. Powerful.
Yeah.
There's an intellectual transfer of knowledge that we get with every one of those books. So there's a history lesson, or a social studies lesson, or science, or something that we learn through reading the books that we didn't get in a classroom, or wouldn't necessarily get in a classroom. If we didn't know someone, or we didn't experience it ourselves. And so I think just that the knowledge of topics and issues,
that's right,
has elevated the whole community, just by being able to approach something in a book that you wouldn't ordinarily have read otherwise. I mean, that's
right. Yeah.
You don't have to take a class. It's, a book you can get at your library with a library card.
Right. And it's knowledge that leads to empathy, right?
Exactly.
And that's what I kept thinking every year there was another book. And I thought, okay, so we're growing the empathy and compassion in the community. And it's just growing as we learn and understand and put ourselves in different situations. To me, I hope that maybe Kalamazoo County is a little bit better place, right? Because of this opportunity we've had to learn and to empathize every year.
Well, people would line up early to, for the author visits, and it's a very much appreciated part of reading together. And just, the chance to get to meet an author and to ask questions, or just to say, your book touched me. That is it's not possible, I think, to find a book that's going to appeal to everyone every year.
Yeah.
But the fact that KPL and the whole Reading Together community has tried to keep eyes open, ears open, hearts open to what is in the conversations, what's being said, maybe what's not being said, but what needs to be said. And I think that's why every year you pick a book that's like, wow, it's just the timing is perfect for it.